Let's get this shit. Fancy coffee mug, is that?
Hi, Sue. Sue, number 8. Go and get yours.
I see Sue got a packet
Yeah.
Starbucks.
Yeah. I can't remember whether she tried it previously. I don't know if she could find it. I'm not sure. So I went on shopping a couple of days ago. I just picked one up for her.
Is this the strongest coffee?
No. It's a medium roast. It's just it's not even close to being strongest.
So is the scale just different?
It's just different.
Probably 1 to 5. Isn't
Yeah. Afternoon, Miriam. How you doing?
Okay. All shared.
Cool. $2.20. Yeast. Hello, Kerry. Yes, Special Cup is back.
Yeast is normally in a tub.
Yeah, no.
I think it's taken shelf.
Yeah.
Hi, Jan.
Hi, Carl. Hello, Jan. Didn't realise about what? Jan. At least you aren't making fish today. Well, I've done many a flavoured bread this week, Miriam. So, anchovies. We could stick some anchovies in it. If I had some anchovies, I could do that. But,
I think we might actually have some in the.
no, we've got sardines.
Right.
I mean, I don't know what I don't know what sardine bread tastes like. Probably sardines.
Let's not find out.
However, right, fish. Yeah, now you put it like that. Fish bread.
We're 5 minutes into the live.
Yeah, come on. This is supposed to be a serious live. How to make bread. None of this nonsense. All right. Anyway, how are we all? Ella is going to try and
Change
record.
the battery.
No, Ella's going to change the battery in the camera. So this is going to be a YouTube video at some point. Good luck editing this.
Hopefully it's not me.
And this is the exact recipe that we use to make any of the low carb bread at the bakery. So this is a single portion of dough. This is the one that I made earlier today, obviously. And what I'm going to share with you today is the exact recipe to create that. The rolls. So one of those would be the equivalent of 6 rolls. This is the seeded version, but again, it's exactly the same recipe. We just switch the seeds. And essentially you'd get 3 baguettes for the same volume of a loaf. Or 3 pizzas. But, you know, what are you getting banned for, Kerry? Is this fish? Have I missed Kerry? I mean, you know, with I'll be honest, Kerry, the cheesy mite, blimey. Cheesy mite loaf has been flying out this week. Right, so great question. And I did bring one with me. I'll find it off. I'll actually get Ella to find the link for this right now while we're online. If you can go into our Amazon account, you'll find that I've bought. Just type in loaf tin, and you'll find loads of these. I've bought about 100 of them in the past year. These, I think it's something like about 8 by 20, something like that. I know they go by. I think they class it as a £2 loaf. We'll get you the exact details in a second.
The title is £2 traditional farmhouse loaf tin.
Right, there you go. So a £2 tin. Now this, for those Ninja fans, this will fit in the Ninja Foodie as well. The Ninja tin's a fraction longer and a little bit lower. However, if you want the loaf to sort of come out to stand a bit like that when it's finished, then this is how you're going to do it. So there's your loaf tin. Now, let me get one thing really clear. This recipe is an adaptation to other recipes. This recipe that I'm sharing with you now is the exact one I use, and I have been using for about 8 months now, probably maybe 7-8 months, something like that. When we got the new nutritionals done on the loaf, and I changed it because it made it lighter. I was practicing with the variety of ingredients that we can use, and I found one that made a lighter loaf. So fluffier loaf. So the loaf used to weigh about 100 grams more, but was denser, was much denser. It was sort of tougher. With a little bit of experimentation, managed to change the recipe, so adapt the recipe and make a lighter loaf. And we've stuck with that recipe now for the last, sort of say, 7-8 months, something like that. The original recipe goes back to Keto King. Now, I've never actually watched his video, never until this afternoon. And it is exactly the same ingredients. I've tinkered with the volumes, and I think he uses xanthan gum, and I understand why. But we don't. No need. But the recipe itself is originally from Keto King, and we've had it adapted, and it's gone through stages. The recipe isn't mine. Anyone can have the recipe. You can make the changes to suit yourself, because you can switch the linseed to, because a lot of people don't like linseed, so you can switch the linseed to sunflower seeds or pumpkin seeds. You can switch it to lupin flour. You can switch it to ground almonds.
That especially works for a sweeter loaf.
It works good for if you want to make a cinnamon or a chocolate loaf. We've made a chocolate loaf previously. So just to make sure that there's no confusion here, a recipe is a recipe, and it doesn't belong to anyone once it's out there. It is there for anyone and everyone to use and adapt to your own taste. You may not want as much salt as me. You may want to switch one of the seeds. You might not like the linseed. You might want a denser loaf, and therefore you're going to stick with more of the oat fiber and less of the psyllium husk. That's what, when we make it to our own tastes. What I'm going to show you right now, exactly so. A recipe is a starting point for you learning how to do and how to adapt it for your own personal tastes. That's it. So we can only make one recipe because of the volumes. I can't make lots of, but we make different. Obviously, we've made some adaptations to sort of try and suit. So we made the seeded loaves. We make the standard loaf. And we make the cinnamon loaf. So there's some adaptations there to give different options. But if you want to change the recipe in any way, that's it. You don't have to ask permission. If you want to share the recipe, again, don't have to ask permission. It is a recipe that is out there. There is no trademark. There's no copyright. There's no legal reasons why you can't use and share a recipe that somebody else has put online on. That's why all of our recipes are available online on our website. The only thing you get done for with copyright is if you're using somebody else's pictures. So please bear in mind that if someone says, well, that's somebody's recipe, actually, it's just a recipe. It's a collection of ingredients. Right, I'm going to show you what we do and how we've adapted the recipe to create what I think is a better loaf. And part of it is in the process, the ingredients.
Timothy was missing you.
Hi, Timothy. How you doing? See, brighten my day up.
Said he only subscribed for you.
Wow. Blimey.
No pressure.
No pressure then. Yeah, that's right. We can all use the same ingredients, but we're all potentially going to get slightly different results. And the results often come from the process and the pause. I might want to stick this in at somewhere. Process and pause. Because the pause is the most important part of getting a good loaf. Or what's that? Well, said that at first. What did I say, Kerry?
Jan saying she wasn't sure about Marmite.
Oh, right, which one? Right, okay. Three couple of times, but I wasn't there. Where was I? How dare I not be here? So the pause is really important. So what I'm saying is that if you're going to make your own bread, it doesn't take long to do the mix, but allow yourself enough time, or the bread enough time, to pause. Okay, and you might be surprised as to how long you can actually leave it before you come round and bake it. This loaf in here, I made it. I'll say 5 this morning. It may have been closer to 6. It was around that time, and it's been sitting in its tin. Now it's in a proving tray at the bakery. It is absolutely stone cold now, and I made it in exactly the same way that we're going to make it here. It proved, and it's been holding at that height. Because I've took the tray off it, it sank just a little bit, but it's been holding at that height for about, I'm just trying to work out, 8 hours. It's been holding in that proved state for 8 hours. It doesn't need to go into a warm oven. It can just sit on the side. And the benefit of leaving it for 8 hours, you can make the mix in the morning, let it prove overnight and bake it in the morning, will give you a much lighter loaf. So proving isn't something you want to rush. You want to allow it to pause, especially a high gluten bread. If it's contained, because gluten, obviously when you first make it, it's very tough, it's very tight. If you don't allow it to rest, then what you'll end up getting is a very tough, tight loaf or roll. Allow it to rest. And again, you can rest this for 12, even 24 hours and then bake it. So I meant to put the oven on when I got in. So I'm going to bake this while we're live. Okay.
I think it's about time I invest in another large tripod.
You what, sorry? Oh, right. There's one in there. In the PC room.
I don't know whether it works with this camera, though.
Yes, it does. Yeah, you take the top off. Right. Okay. So I don't need to look at the recipe, nor to check anything. I'm going to show you. Right. So it's always liquids first. I've pre-weighed stuff out here, so we're not messing about. But I'm going to talk you through how we make it. Liquids first. It is warm water. It doesn't have to be a specific temperature. It's just warm water. Coco. I've just moved an oven tray and put it on a stool there, and Coco's finding it very interesting. I'm going to make, in this small mixer, I'm going to make 2 loaf batch. 1 loaf isn't enough for the actual mixer, the dough hook, to actually mix in properly. Right. Pair of you are nightmares. A tray that had chicken on it, I just stuck on the stool down there, and both dogs are just stood there looking at it.
They kept a respectful distance.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So per loaf, and we're going to be using real eggs as well. So per loaf, 220 mils of warm water. please don't panic if you put 222 or 225 per loaf. It's fine. It's about 220 mils of water. If you suddenly go to 250 and 260, maybe that's going to produce actually what it will do, it'll inflate the loaf too much. You'll end up with big holes in the top. This is classed as a high hydration loaf. What looks like an upgraded temperature control.
That's your morning coffee.
Oh right, yeah. I had no idea then. Yes, I sit this on the induction hob. I fill it with coffee, and do you know what, Emma? You shouldn't have given me that idea. Okay. So obviously the water can be warm but not hot because you're putting eggs in it. What you don't want to do is scramble the eggs when they're going in.
So Jan has a question. She says, not sure what I've done wrong, but my bread has the eating texture of sponge, as in bathroom, or do I just live with it?
High gluten, high hydration bread is not the same as carby bread. It has a different texture. So it should be soft, so you can still feel it, but it is going to have more of a bite. It's going to require a little bit more jaw power because gluten is the protein of wheat. It's the tougher, tighter part. Most breads are about 12% gluten. This is the predominant ingredient in here. So it's not 100% gluten, as in gluten flour isn't 100% gluten. This gluten flour is about 70% gluten. You can get higher, and this is the issue about buying different ingredients online is you don't know what percentage the gluten is. So we use I think it's a 72% gluten. I've tried the higher versions. They're a little bit more difficult to control. They tend to blow up a little bit more. Right, so 2 eggs, water. You don't need to do this bit. However, if you want your bread to last a little bit longer, i.e. you want it to sort of sit in the fridge for, I can put that loaf in the fridge that I made this morning, and I can guarantee that loaf won't go off for at least a week, if not longer. If you leave it out, because it has no mold inhibitors in it, then it will develop mold. Look at the list of ingredients that are on the back of a standard white loaf. The list of additives are there to prevent it from going off. That's it. They're not, they call them dough improvers. Dough improvers are there to extend the shelf life of a loaf, so it can actually sit on a supermarket shelf for a week without it even looking like it's going off. That's not real food. That's processed food. What we're doing here, Totally Jane. She's changed the name. Or is that different?
We kept forgetting about her name.
Yeah. What I'm doing here is showing you the low carb loaf, gluten based, and how we do it. So if you add, this is apple cider vinegar. If you add apple cider vinegar, it's a natural preservative, and it will extend the shelf life, but only by a few days. Don't expect this loaf to sit on the side in your bread bin for a week and not be affected. It has no artificial additives to prevent mold from growing. And again, it's a high hydration loaf. Therefore, what does mold like? It likes warmth, so room temperature, and it likes moisture. So per loaf, just 5 mils. It's only a small amount. Okay. You can't taste the vinegar, by the way. Honestly. You can't taste the vinegar. Right, we're just gonna, woof. Yeah, I know. Bear with me. In.
On your bed, quicker.
They want the chicken pan. I might be tempted, Dan, to just give them the chicken pan in a minute.
They're not allowed treats after this.
Yeah. Oh, I'll tell you what the dogs did this morning. I shall leave it there. Be quiet now. So, just giving it a quick mix. Just going to break the eggs. Right, I have got the ingredients. That one's empty. I have got the ingredients here. All right. I'll add them one at a time while it's mixing, but I'll just go through them now. And actually, the addition of the ingredients is quite important as to which way round, okay? Gluten is last. Leave it to one side. I'll tell you why in a second. We've got psyllium husk. This is the whole husks. So this isn't the powder. However, in this case, if you've got the psyllium powder, it works in the loaf. The psyllium powder, if you use it in something like a pan-fried, like a roti or the coconut rotis, it can turn some things purple. It doesn't do it in here, okay? However, I prefer to use the fiber. There's per loaf, there's 5 grams of fiber. Oat fiber. This gives it a little, it adds a little bit of flavor. It's also structure. So you've got to bear in mind that when you go and buy a strong white flour from the supermarket to make your own bread, it contains certain elements. When we're using gluten, it doesn't have those elements in it. So we're adding them back in. So we're creating our own flour. So oat fiber helps with the structure and with the flavor. Now, you can go with less oat fiber and a little bit more psyllium husk if you want. You have to be careful how much psyllium husk you use because it can create a slight stickiness inside baked goods. So I work with 5 grams of psyllium husk and I work with 20 grams of oat fiber per loaf.
How many loaves are you making?
I'm making 2 in this tin. Yeast. I'm just going to set that off to start mixing on a low speed.
Helen's asking, can this be made in a bread maker?
Okay. Just give me a quick thumbs up. Is that interfering too much with me talking? Because otherwise, I don't want to speak too much while that's going. So someone just let me know. Am I audible enough, clear enough to carry on? No. Is that?
I think that means no, it's not interfering.
I wasn't sure then, Kerry.
You asked 2 questions.
Yeah,
You
sorry,
had a yes and a no.
It's not interfering, right? I'm going to leave it running then. Okay. Talk then. Right. So yeast. This is fast-acting yeast. Because we're using fast-acting yeast, we do not need to use sugar. There is no need for using sugar with fast-acting yeast, okay? Now, the quality of your yeast will impact on the loaf. This is a professional grade fast-acting yeast. I only use 3 grams of yeast per loaf. That's it. You may, depending on the quality of the yeast you get from supermarkets, you may need to use a little bit more. It's okay if you use a bit more, and in the proving process it goes a bit too big. I'll show you what to do about that. But I only use 3 grams. Again, if you're using fast-acting yeast, you do not need to use any sugar whatsoever. It's a bit more tricky to weigh out just 3 grams because I normally weigh out 50 grams at a time. There you go.
So 6 grams. Right, the ingredient that is quite easily swapped. This is golden linseed. 60 grams per loaf. You can swap this out for, as I say, looping flour. You can swap it for a mix of other seeds. So with the seeded bread now, I actually don't grind it. They go in whole. So you could use whole seeds, whatever you want, about 60 grams. There's not if it's a couple of grams over. You could use whole linseed if you want. You could use whole pumpkin, sunflower, hemp, anything like that. They just help create texture, okay? So don't worry if it's not super fine. You'll see it in the loaf. You'll be able to see the golden flecks in the loaf, which is, fine. But there's your seed of choice. It could be ground almonds. I say it could be.
In the mixed seed, we use the pumpkin and sunflower, don't we?
Yeah.
Combine.
Yeah. Right. Gluten. There's a reason why gluten should be added in potentially at the end. And again, this is the process that I go through when we're making our batches. Gluten is the last ingredient on the basis that if gluten goes into water without anything in there, it will immediately start to form and it will go lumpy. Believe me, I've thrown many a batch away not understanding why, because the gluten's hit the water first. So it's best to separate it and add it as this last ingredient. So gluten, I mean, if it's mixed into the flours, if you want to mix it all in together, fine, it won't generally cause an issue, okay? However, if you are weighing it out from the bag, wherever, do this last. Otherwise, you'll end up with sort of lumps. It almost feels like glue inside your loaf, okay? And you'll end up with pockets of what look like dough in your loaf. They'll be quite tough. So this goes last. Per loaf, it's 170 grams. Now, I've just got it on, salt. It definitely needs salt, okay? Salt is going to be, down to your taste. However, I work on around about 4 grams of salt per loaf. Right. Yeah. I missed the oil, but that's okay. It's absolutely fine. The oil will still mix in, okay? So the oil hasn't gone in. There's 15 mils of oil per loaf going in, okay? It isn't going to cause a problem. It's going in last, by the way. Normally, I'd add it in with the liquids. So 15 per. And I'm going to change the mixer. I'm going to change the mixer to the hook. Don't need to mix it on high, and I was just using the paddle just to combine the ingredients as we went along. So, I'm just going to quickly wash my hands. What was I going to say?
So Helen had the question about the bread mix.
Oh, the bread mix. Right, okay. So, yes. However, I've seen a lot of issues with bread makers because they don't have a specific program for high hydration, high gluten loaves. Whenever I've only I think I've ever done it. No, I've done it a couple of times in the bread maker that we've got. We haven't got an instruction manual to it. I've just given one. I've had hit and miss. I've had them blow up, and then I've had them form little rocks. Oh, I'm going to put the loaf in. The oven looks ready. Right, let me show you this. So when I first took this out of the dough tray, it was level with here. So it sank a little bit just because I've sort of like taken the tray off it. So it was all the way up to the top. Now, let's go through the troubleshooting. If when you prove your bread, it suddenly rises a lot and you can see like air holes inside it, then you can squash them. You can push it back. You can knock it back essentially. The air, the rise will come back. What we tend to do, and I do this with the seeded loaf, is because the seeded one, because it's got a slightly higher carb level because of the pumpkin and the sunflower seeds, it grows more, and you can invariably end up with a hollow top. So all that will happen is you'll see it. You'll see. I can see this is quite solid. There are no air holes in there at all, but you'll see pockets with a very sort of light skin over the top of them. If you see that, score the bread. Go through it. So with a sharp knife, and I don't mind doing it to this one because it will still grow. With a sharp knife, and you'll hear the air coming out. So go into it and just cut across. Now it might deflate just a little bit. That's good because what you're doing is you're allowing the gas that has formed inside to release. If you don't allow the gas to release, it will blow massive holes in the loaf. And that's what sometimes happens in the bread makers, is you don't see the pockets because obviously you close the lid, you let it run, and 3 hours later it's filled the bread maker, but the top part of it is hollow and the bottom part is basically unusable. See how much that sank now? So that sank about another half an inch just because I've put into it. So I've taken out the gas that's formed inside. So what that will do now, hopefully, as you're going to see, is allow it to rise properly, evenly, without any pockets inside. So I'm going to put that in the oven. Right, that's on about 190. And Alexa, set timer for 30 minutes.
30 minutes. Starting now.
Right, 30 minutes is maximum, okay? Alexa, I won't say what I normally say. Be quiet.
Here's a station you won't know.
Alexa, stop. Thank you. Right, okay. So normally, again, in the bakery, these are 30-minute loaves. However, that is because I am baking a couple of dozen at a time on 2 shells. It may take a little less time in the oven. It doesn't matter if you go over by 5 minutes, it won't sort of change it too much. But in this first stage, now, and for the first 20 minutes, don't open the oven. Because what you'll do is the gas that's going to form, create the crust, and to get the rise, will suddenly go, and you'll be left with a flat loaf. So leave it alone. 20 minutes minimum. And then if you want to check it, check it. But set a timer for 30 minutes and you'll be good. Right, okay. Oh, right, Coco now wants to go out because she can smell stuff. Alright, I'll open the door. Right, what abuse am I missing? Because Ella's been stood in the way of the comments, but I can see Miriam, Emma. So you're being uncharacteristically informative today.
So what that means is we need 10 minutes of waffle.
Right, okay, so shall I lighten up for a bit? Do you know what the scoring? I say I do that. I didn't bring a seeded loaf actually. The scoring actually is very nice, and I do it purposely so I can identify the seeded more. When they're sort of stacked together, they look very similar, so I can see the scores in the seeded, and I don't score the plain. I came halfway through. Is this different? So it's the basis of the recipe, but it's the adaptations that I've made over the last year, which now form the low carb loaf in the bakery. So again, the mega came from the Keto King, so it was an adaptation of the Keto King recipe. In fact, I wanted Ella to share. I want you to sort of so you understand what I mean about sort of how recipes sort of transition. Keto King has got two tutorials available. One is his bread maker recipe, and one his oven recipe. And you'll see we're using the same ingredients pretty much. He just uses a bit of xanthan gum. The xanthan gum, I'm nearly ready with that. The xanthan gum is helps with structure. It helps the dough absorb the fat. I think he uses a bit more fat. I've never felt I've needed to use it. Again, it's one of those adaptations. You can look at it, see if it sort of works for you, but it's not necessary. So I'm not sure why he thought it was for his. But yes, you can certify that I'm definitely known for my bread chats. Yes, thank you. It's nearly done. It's nearly done. You can see it's working hard now. Yeah. Oh, blimey! It is noisy. Wow.
I'm surprised no one commented about that sooner.
Wow. Okay, so I didn't time it. I would say for a 2 loaf mix, 5 minutes. Sorry, we need to do that bit again because Ella's. Sorry.
Go again.
Take 2. So for a 2 loaf mix, I'd say no more than 5 minutes is needed. Okay. I tend to use 2 different timings at the bakery. If I'm making half a batch, which is 20 loaves, it's 10 minutes. And if I'm making a full batch, which is 40 loaves, it's 15 minutes. 5 is ample, okay? You don't want to overmix this because, again, that's just going to get tighter and tighter. Now, I think that if anyone has made bread previously and then comes to making this, you'll notice that there's a massive difference in the actual the way the dough feels. And who's got a malfunctioning cat?
Don't tell YouTube cat.
And the reason why it feels so different is because it's high gluten. Sorry, I'm moving that out of the way of that camera, and I've moved it in front of the YouTube camera. Right, so Phil, I've never actually made it with lupin, I don't think. It's something that I keep meaning to do because we have like pallets of it. But yeah, I'll give that a go one day. I just wonder, what does it? I suppose you need to have tasted both versions. Is that the only one you've made? It'd be interesting to see what it tastes like. Okay, so if you've got some spare gluten, then use it. And yes, you will get covered in flour. Sorry. Sorry, missed the beginning, but was listening. What did you miss, Karen? It doesn't matter. I'm getting changed in a minute. Right, okay. So what I'm saying about the feel of the dough is that it isn't stretchy. It's breakable. Yeah? That's how it is when it's just been made. It's breakable. It has no give. Gluten is very tight. This is what I mean by the pause, the proving process. Because if you want to have a light, soft loaf roll baguette, you can't do it from that and you can't rush it. You can't expect to make a soft loaf in 30 minutes on a 30-minute proof. The minimum proof that I give any of our bread is 2 hours. Minimum. It's bread. I love that. It's bread.
I haven't got one, Sal. Honestly, I haven't got one here. I did mean to print a new one off, but they're all at the bakery.
We do need new keto Emery.
Yeah, I know. Right, okay, so. I think we've got a dough cutter here. So ill prepared. Right, so I'm just going to show you what I do. So this is a 2-loaf mix. 1,240 grams in total. I'm going to take 560. There you go, 560. Where's the best place to get 5-week gluten in large quantities? It depends. What do you class as a large quantity, Phil? How much are you trying to buy? You're trying to buy a kilo, 5 kilos, 25 kilos, or a ton? Because I can put you in touch with the guys that sell me by the ton if you want. Depends what you're going to do with it. Open up a bakery. Right, there you go. That is the amount of dough that you'll need for one of those loaves. Okay? More than 1 kilo bags. I don't know of anywhere specifically that you. I mean, I know places like Buy Whole Foods online probably sell it in 5 kilo bags. I'm sure I used to buy it from them. Most places will only generally sell it in ½ kilo or 1 kilo just because of the weight of the shipping, because it all adds up. Right. Okay. So the loaf. If you want a nice smooth surface, you want to roll it. So it's just pushing the inside and to create, and essentially I'm just rotating it, rolling it round. So you get a nice smooth top. That's it. And you can see how much space it's got to grow. Okay. Now, I haven't got we haven't got a plastic tub, have we, big enough for that?
A what?
A tub that I can sit this in.
No.
If you want to, for the best loaf, stick it away somewhere covered for like 2 hours. Leave it alone. It will grow. Doesn't need heat. Doesn't need to go on top of the oven. Seriously, I stack mine in proving boxes. We have a special trolley for it, and they just stack in the kitchen, and that's it. They don't. It's just normal room temperature. It will grow. It does. If you force it, it will grow quickly, and it'll fill, and you tend to end up having a bit of a soggy loaf, or a bit of a, it just dips in the middle. Let it grow. I haven't got one, Emma. I haven't got those size pots here. However, it just needs covering. There you go. Just needs covering. There's enough warmth in the water. You can do this with cold water, by the way, folks. You don't even have to use hot water. The fast-acting yeast doesn't require you to give it any temperature. Fast-acting yeast will, over time, gradually build its own temperature, because if it's just sat out overnight, it will grow. Believe me, go and test it. Make yourself a loaf, stick it in a pot or something, cover it over, and just leave it on the side overnight and see what happens by the morning. Is it 170 gluten for one loaf? Yes, per loaf, 170 gluten per loaf. Right, so the rest of this I'm going to make into rolls. Now, I meant to bring a baguette tray back with me, but I haven't got one. So we use around 90 grams of dough per loaf. Per roll. I'll show you the rolling technique. So it's a little bit sticky. So it's always good if you have some gluten available. Now, normally when we do the rolls, we cut a big batch off. So the dough generally weighs about, if it's a main loaf, a main batch, it's about 20 kilos, just over 20 kilos. And we'll break it up into smaller batches. So before I actually make it into rolls, I allow it to rest. 15 minutes, half an hour is good, because again, this is quite tight. It's quite sticky. If you let it rest for a little while, it's less sticky. Okay. So I'm just going to see what that one is. All right, 130. Right. Okay. So we'll do something else with that. So there you go. I've got my 6 rolls and I've got some extra dough. Okay. So this is the 2 loaf mix. One loaf is proving, 6 rolls, and we can make that into a baguette. Right. Okay. So same process. To make the small rolls is I'm just feeding with my fingers. I'm feeding underneath, and I'm using the top of the top of my thumbs, or the inside of my thumbs, to smooth the roll down. A perfect little roll, should we say? Okay. So again, I'm going to find a little tray for these, and I'm going to let them prove for at least 2 hours. In fact, these I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to put them in a foodie tray. We've got a light bulb about to go. Actually, we might actually lose the lights. It might trip the switch. There's one just doing a little flicker. God, it feels weird, that light's gone. Feels dark.
I'm just going to balance it out with
Yeah. Light either side. I'm going to stick these in a Ninja tin, and I'm going to put them in the foodie and just leave them alone. No heat. And I'll bake them later. Now, if you wanted to add flavour, now we've got a flashing light. It can't work out with it anyway. If you want to add flavour, you're always best doing it right at the beginning. So let's say the cheese might. I actually add the yeast extract into the water, and that goes in obviously into the mixer first. So you then get the cheese mite, or you get the yeast extract flavour throughout the loaf. The cheese part I add to the flours, obviously. So that goes in when I'm adding the flours in there. Right, let me. So I'm going to use that one. I'll do it as that way around. They're going to end up filling this, okay? Now, I saw recently somebody make some rolls, and on the tray, they had them quite far apart. What happens there is that you'll end up, because there's nothing stopping the roll, trying to give it any sort of structure. What will happen is it'll come. Yeah, you can hear birds tweeting. It'll actually sort of create like a ball, so a full roll. If you want something like that, where it's flat, you can sort of see where they touch each other. Where is it? Yeah, you can sort of see where they touch each other. Don't set them too far apart. So when you're putting them on the tray, just a couple of inches in between, and then as they grow, they will touch together, and they'll stop the next one creating that sort of full roll, okay, or that ball. So if you want it to be flat, then don't have them too far apart. Right, I'm going to pop these in the foodie.
Yes, Sal, it's dark now. It wasn't when we started the live.
I haven't been live that long.
It's 10 to 6.
Okay.
Jane's
Oh, go on.
asking, is it because of the type of bread that it will prove without warmth, or will any bread do it if you leave it long enough?
Any bread will do it if you leave it long enough. Well, any sort of like gluten-based breads.
This is the only bread in the library that needs proving.
Yeah. So a lot of the other breads, like the soda bread, doesn't contain gluten, so it just doesn't need proving. You want the proving process is to allow the relaxation and to make it sort of it'll rise. It won't over rise. It won't sort of suddenly, so if it's not under any sort of heat, it won't fill the ninja. How many grams of carbs for one loaf? Less than 6.
I'm popping the link into the Ketoroma
I think it's just under 6
collection because it depends on the type of seeds you use. But if you click on the first one, the original, so the linseed based, 1.68 carb per 100 grams.
Okay, so 1.68 per 100. So obviously the macros are always done on, in this case, cooked. Then it's a 480. They work between 480, 490 grams of loaf. Someone do the math. 480 times 1.6. No, 4.8 times 1.6, not 480. It's not much. Are you doing the math?
7.68.
There you go. 8. Let's call it 8 for the loaf. 8 grams of carbs for the entire loaf. However,
do not eat the entire loaf.
Do not eat the entire loaf. Do not think that it's only 8 grams. I can have the loaf. This is obviously it's high gluten, so it can be problematic for digestion for some people. It's high fiber. We've got 2 fibers in here, plus 3 if you include the seeds as well. So if you consume a lot of this, you're consuming a lot of fiber. So yes, when it comes to using this, when it comes to using the low carb loaves or breads, anything like that, use them in moderation. What does that mean? It means don't rely on it on a daily basis. It should be something that it can form part of your your week, but it shouldn't be a primary. I mean, because if you enter this into sort of a fitness app, MyFitnessPal or anything like that, it's a high protein loaf, but it's gluten protein. It's not the same as eating sort of animal based protein. So.
And I have seen a certain brand promote their gluten based products as a protein alternative to animal products. It is not nowhere near the same as protein from any other real food source.
Right. Okay. So here's disaster pants. Okay. So here's the benefit of allowing the dough to rest, to pause. These essentially are the same volumes. I made this from the same batch this morning. This is 160 grams. This is 140. I think it was what was left, 140. So there's barely anything left. There's barely any difference in it. Yeah, 140. So very little difference. Now, if I was to want to make a baguette out of this, it's going to be really tough and tight to roll out. I'll show you. So standard baguette. So this is again how we make them. So there's the starting point. You don't want too much gluten on your board. It will prevent it from rolling out properly. Start with a one-handed roll. Now it takes some work to start the dough to move, get the dough to start moving, and then go into a two-handed roll. Now the thing, it's because the ball's not fixed. The thing with the gluten is that it will want to spring back.
just trying to get it even. And it is a little bit more difficult to get it to be sort of like even all the way through when it's a tight dough. So there you go. Roll that one out. It's probably 9 inches, 8 inches, something like that. I'm going to leave it there. Yes, this is this morning's dough. Now you won't be able to hear this. I haven't handled this properly yet. But as I sort of like squish it together, air is going to come out. So little bits of air, and you can sort of see almost there's pockets there. So that's what happens when you do the loaf.
So Darren's got a good question.
Oh, sorry, Darren, missed that.
Can you not add the bread protein to your daily toast?
No,
then?
essentially no, because it is not a complete protein. So you're trying to when you're looking at your protein levels, you're eating protein based on its nutritional value. So animal-based meat, fish, eggs, cheese. You don't get the same nutritional value from gluten protein. And gluten protein, again, can be inflammatory for some people. It can certainly create digestive issues. And it isn't as bioavailable to the body as a protein source to break down. So essentially, if you're relying on gluten to add to your protein, then you're probably only using that as part of your total. Then you're probably under eating on the essential nutrients that you need. So when you do the extra proof, it won't spring back as much. So even this one now, if I put this in the oven now, it will tighten up and it will shrink back. Whereas this one won't. It's relaxed. It's much softer. I know you can't sort of sense this, but this is quite tight and I can feel it. It's not soft and squishy. Whereas this one, it's more like Play-Doh, okay? So with the baguette, you don't need to press too hard. In fact, you need to press harder to get this one to roll out. You can sort of like roll it, leave it, come back to it and roll it again, okay? So I've managed to get, but you can sort of see the difference between sort of like freshly made and proved for essentially 12 hours. And it's much easier to handle. I will pop these in the oven. We're just going to score the tops. And we're going to find the tray. What's unfortunate? Soft and squishy. Right. So the loaf looks like it's nearly done. Sorry about this. Alexa, how long's left on the timer?
You have 3 minutes and 30 seconds left on your 30-minute timer.
Cool, she actually did the timer.
She hasn't added any extra information. She's obviously bored as well. No, I'll get it down.
Do as I say, not as I do.
I'll get it down. Well, no, I was going to leave it for 3 minutes, but it's had 30. Well, it's had 27 minutes by the time I get in it, and you know what? Okay. What?
It's the oven cocoa.
All right. There you go. Nice smooth top. risen back to where it should be, even though I sliced it, even though it deflated. No air holes, no pockets, no nothing. And now we don't line these tins. Depends on your tin. Okay, if you get these tins, not sponsored by whoever sells them. If you get these tins, they're great. They don't need lining. They don't need spraying. They don't need any extra ingredients. There you go. Perfect loaf. So that started its life at 560 grams. It will weigh less now, obviously. It's now at 520, and it will lose more weight as it cools. Okay, so it will go down to about 490, 480, something like that. However, there's your perfectly cooked loaf. That was proved for, I would say, about 8 hours, 8 to 9 hours. Okay, yes, other tins are available. These tins are ideal for this loaf. I have tried making much bigger loaves, okay, and they tend not to rise well. They tend not to hold in the middle. So I've tried with one of the big Pullman tins, and they just don't seem to hold their shape in the middle. You are best leaving it alone for a good hour or two before you start cutting into it. Where's the butter? Yeah. And that's what, to be honest, there's a point as well. So some of the adaptations that you can make. We use oil, okay? So that keeps the loaf dairy free. You can use butter if you want. I've never tried it, but I see no reason why it wouldn't work with coconut oil. It will work with extra virgin olive oil. It actually works with lard. Okay, so if you've got a different fat that you want to use, and fat is there for a reason. It helps with the texture, and it helps sort of bind the ingredients. You don't need much. That 15 mils of fat per loaf is more than enough. If anyone's had the olive loaf, that's got a slightly higher fat percentage, mostly because of the olives. So it's a little bit denser. You don't quite get the light fluffiness that you get inside here. But, you know, you can obviously hear it's got a nice crust. It will soften. Thank you. Alexa, stop. It will soften. So the crust in itself will go soft. Like this. So it's still got a little bit of a texture to the top. And especially if you're getting one of these delivered, or if you are now going to store it, and you're going to store it in a plastic bag. So actually, we've got some new bags. That's not the one. There you go. So we're literally just changing to these. I don't know if you can't see it. Just changing to these, and it says, I am green. These are 100% recyclable bags. If you are going to store it in a plastic bag, it will go soft. If you want to keep it crunchy, if you want a crust, I haven't got a sheet of paper, then find some paper and wrap it in that. Okay, so whether that be some baking paper, parchment paper, whatever, find some paper big enough, wrap it in that. That will keep it sort of slightly crustier on the outside. Okay, we have to send food out in plastic bags, but if you're making it at home, store it in whatever you want. If you put it in an airtight container, it's going to go soft. Okay. Is there anything that I've missed? Is there anything that you'd like to ask while we're here? I mean, I've still got more coffee in the pot. What's Miriam? Emma and I would like to thank you on behalf of everyone for the information this evening. Well, do you know what? We timed this, we planned this last week when we were talking about the lives. I said I wanted to share this recipe. We've been using it for quite a while now, and I think it's better than previous. It's definitely lighter. The loaf is less chewy, so it used to be quite tough. It's still not going to be like your Warburtons, where basically you don't need to use teeth. But you know, it's not too tough. Do you store it in fridge or in bread bin? It has to be stored in a fridge because it doesn't contain any of the preservatives that bread that comes from a supermarket contain. So if you want something to sort of sit in your bread bin, then you need to, and there are companies out there that will do it, or you need to buy your own bread improver. Just Google bread improvers. Bread improvers essentially prevent mold. They add carbs. This is why we don't use them. So they will add a carb level. They add a number of preservatives, additives. So they're all mixed in together. I've shown you exactly the recipe, the ingredients that we use, which is why we always recommend it's either stored in the fridge. So, you know, if you're buying sliced loaf and you're going to use it in the space of, you know, 5 days, 7 days, then probably fridge is okay. However, if it's going to be for longer, then you have to sort of like store it in the freezer. What bag to freeze it in? Any bag, I mean, the bag that it comes in, but any freezer bag is fine. I mean, a lot of people will break it down into, you know, smaller quantities into freezer bags, and you know, so you can take out 2 or 3 pieces at a time. But any freezer bag's fine. You don't even need a freezer bag. You can actually wrap it in the paper and stick it in the freezer that way. Is there an ideal percentage of added bits? Oh, sorry. Does it crumb okay for breadcrumbs? Yes. Sorry, Christina. Yes, it does. You'd need to rebake it, as in retoast it. So as you would with a normal bread, slice it, bake it, or you know, toast it. Allow it to cool, and then blitz it to a breadcrumb. But yeah, it works perfectly for a breadcrumb. Sorry, Jen. Is there an ideal percentage of added bits, e.g. nuts, that would be a maximum? Do you know what? So if I was to think about what I use, let's go with cheese mite. Because you don't want to, the more ingredients that you add, the more you're affecting the texture of the bread. So the rise, essentially, the more you add, the lower it will go. So for the cheese mite per loaf, and it's a slightly smaller loaf, it's a 400 gram dough, but out of that 400 gram dough, 10 grams of it is yeast extract, and 20 grams of it is cheese, or 25 grams. So it's about 10%. I think when you start going higher than that, I'm trying to think of I suppose olives is about the same. Yeah, no, olives is about the same. And the tomato one, because again, they've got, rather than just flavor, the chili one, it's just chili flakes. So you're not really going to impact on the chili one rises just as well as the standard loaf. But anything that contains more moisture, i.e. cheese, olives, or the sun-dried tomatoes, anything that contains more moisture, the more you add in, the denser the loaf's going to go. Yes, Sal, totally agree. French toast for Sunday breakfast. If I get the dough ready and let it prove when I'm out all day tomorrow. Yeah, definitely. And actually, one of the things, I haven't brought any with me, and I'll save it for another one. The pizza bases. If you're going to want to make pizza bases, then you can do it from the same dough. You don't need egg. Okay, so egg's not required for a pizza base because egg helps with the rise. So if you were to miss, you could do this without egg. So you can actually make the entire loaf without egg. What will happen is you get a shorter loaf, a tighter, smaller loaf. So if you're egg free, you can follow the exact same recipe. Just miss the eggs out. That's it. It'll just be a smaller loaf.
Have you tried with this version doing the chia egg replacement?
No, I haven't. I want to do. Hey, guess what? This isn't the only bread chat you're going to get. We're going to do bread chat number 2, bread chat number 3. So bread chat number 2 will be this. I'll do a couple of flavored versions. So we'll do the seeded, and we'll maybe experiment with the egg free using chia seeds as an egg replacer. I've forgotten what I was saying now. Oh, pizza. If you want to make pizzas and you want to make light, fluffy bases, then make your dough, divide it, as I did tonight. It's about 160 grams of dough, and let it rest for a day, at least a day. Because when you go to roll it, like you saw with the baguette, it's quite tight. If you try to roll out a dough that's only like an hour old or 2 hours old, it's just going to shrink back and it's going to stay really tight. So yeah, we're not actually having bread for dinner.
Dinner, not tea.
Yeah, dinner, not tea. You know what? Ella's eaten already. I've not eaten yet, so I don't know. I'll find something. But if you make your dough for pizzas and allow it to prove and then roll it out, you'll get a much lighter, fluffier, pizza base. And if you're going to do it as in your own pizza bases, you don't need to bake them, pre-bake them. So you can actually sort of roll it out, top it, straight in the oven. Done. Pizza bases themselves only take 10 minutes, or when we do them, they take 10 minutes to bake. But if you were topping it, it wouldn't take much longer than that with the toppings on. So you don't need to prove it in the oven then. What, are you talking about pizza bases, Helen? If it's pizza, no.
I suppose with any of them, it's a no, isn't it?
Well, you don't need to prove them in the oven. It's like, I'm going to leave this out. So this one that we've made today, I'm going to leave this out. I'm going to leave it on there. It's a shame we can't do a little time lapse video on that thing to sort of show it growing.
I don't have storage to do that.
What about a really thin base? Use less dough. Just use less dough. You'll get it really thin. The pizza bases that we make, 160 grams. I use a machine that rolls them out into about a 9-inch, 10-inch base. And then when it bakes, it puffs out just a little bit more, and maybe about half an inch. If you want a really thin dough, then you'll either roll it out even further or just start with less dough and roll it out to the 9 inches. And it'll go, obviously it'll bake crispier. You'll never get the crispy crunch out of this. That's the wheat side, the carb side of pizza bases that you get the crunch.
Helen was talking about proving for bread and buns.
Seriously, Helen, I don't use an oven. I use dough trays. So they're just sealed boxes. That's all it is. It's one box that sits on top of another. That's it. No heat, no nothing. It's about the time. So the oven is forcing the process. The oven is accelerating the process of proving. And yes, it works, but the end result is a much tougher, tighter bread. So again, we're after sort of like the best quality bread. And if you want a better quality and a better tasting, because the longer it proves, the better it tastes. Again, if you see, this is the thing. You're not having to do anything while it's growing. I could have had this done. In fact, it takes me about 15 minutes to make a single batch, 40 loaves. It doesn't take much more than a few minutes to put the loaf together, stick it in a tin, and go, see you tomorrow. Because it'll be ready for you tomorrow at any point. Only as it doesn't prove well. So definitely, right, okay, so just give it some cover. Just block it. Just give it something where it's not going to dry out, yeah? I mean, I appreciate some people would put like a damp cloth over it. That's to stop the skin forming on top of the loaf. And if you get a skin, like a hard skin, it prevents it from growing. And again, a lot of times when people put it in the oven, you end up with this sort of like dried out skin. Because unless you've got steam coming in, or you've actually sort of done something about adding moisture to your oven, then it will form a skin, and the skin is going to prevent it from growing properly because it's a barrier. Sorry, Phil. Yes, if you can leave the egg out for pizza bases, because the egg helps with the rise. Okay, there's not much. You can't really taste egg in the. You can't really taste egg in the loaf. It helps with the rise. Again, it's part of that fat protein content that helps with. If you design your own keto baking trays, you can do this thing. Oh, whatever. But yeah, eggs not required for pizza bases. Well, it's not required for the loaf. It's not required. You can get away with it. It just won't produce the same light loaf as this. Sorry, this needs to, with these loaves, get them out of their tin and get them on a cooling tray as quickly as you can. Otherwise, they go damp. There's a lot of moisture in these still. Okay, so on the board here, you can sort of see that's where it's been sitting. There's a lot of moisture that needs to come out of this. So get it on a board, get it on a cooling rack, and give it a couple of hours, and then it's good. Okay. Could have made 200. Yeah, close. Yeah, it's probably what I had to make today, actually. Right. Is there anything else? I didn't want to sort of like kick around for showing you the baguettes, but we're actually not far off them being done. Is it time to go, Christina? Have I got to go now? Would it be okay to use with egg if I was splitting the double amount? Yes. Yeah. So the egg doesn't impact on the pizza, therefore you can leave it out. However, if it's in there, because you're rolling it out and you're essentially preventing it from growing, because it's only a 10-minute bake, and especially if you're putting toppings on top. Occasionally, what happens is you will get sort of air pockets in a pizza base. So when I pre-bake them, there's occasionally you'll get a big air pocket. You can just sort of flatten it. But if you've got toppings on it, it won't develop. It won't push the air out. You can get these little contraptions. I've got one. However, a knife is good enough. When you roll out your pizza base, just make lots of little holes around it. You can get little pizza wheelers, so spikes, and it puts holes in it, and it prevents the air pockets from growing. But just the tip of a knife and just dot it around. So we tend to use the same dough for each of the breads. So rolls, loaves, baguettes, pizzas. However, I have tried the Coco's upstairs. She doesn't like the smells. I have tried the pizzas without egg. Well, I've tried it all without egg. And the pizzas essentially don't change that much. Any more marathons in the future? Yes, hopefully. I honestly want to get back to running. I just haven't had the time in the last 8 months to actually invest in the training. Because it's not about the marathon, it's about the training. The marathon's just rocking up one day for a 4-hour something run. It's as Dan is doing now, it's the twice a week, 3 times a week, going out for an hour. It's the mobility sessions, it's the stretching, it's the time that you have to put into the training, less than or more than the actual. Blimey. Yeah, well, I suppose. Yeah, I won't be there tonight, Karen. I think is Sue leading it?
Well, it's a special edition because it's Sue and a couple of others talking about the retreat with Jen Unwin.
Right, cool. Hand of wraps, mate. You're not wrong there, Miriam. Although, I'm actually, as we're still chatting, and I might as well give it like 5 more minutes for the baguettes to show you, because they're not far off. I'm going to go and get some more coffee. Miriam, Here's your chance. What are panda wraps?
I actually had the last one that's in the fridge.
Right.
Today,
Okay.
but
Well,
there's loads in the freezer.
luckily, I brought some home. All right.
Some of the coloured ones in the freezer as well.
Okay. So we only brought these home because Ella's going to take some new photographs of the bread products in their new bags. Sal, this is the panda wrap. So the panda wrap is made completely different ingredients. Forget all of this because these are gluten-free. They are clean keto. And they're pretty spectacular, if I say so myself. These are little white wraps. Now we've got various flavors of them. They are called panda because they're made with bamboo fiber. Primary ingredient, like let's say with the low carb loaf, the primary ingredient is gluten. The primary ingredient in the panda is bamboo fiber. Am I off now, Miriam? They're perfect little accompaniments to meals. You can make, you can see they're very soft. They're very, very pliable. You can pretty much make whatever you want from them. And people make sort of lasagna with them, using them as pasta sheets. You can make enchiladas with them. You can bake them and they go slightly crispy for like tacos, or you can just make a wrap. Simple as that. Fill it with your choice of protein and low carb keto sauce, and you're good to go. They come in various flavors. Plain, obviously. Hello, Tracy. Garlic and herb. Dan wants 100 of the other ones plain. I don't know if you've listened. Beetroot and spinach. And coming soon, not available and not being launched this weekend with the amount we've got on, will be the chili ones or the piri piri flavored. So they are quite spicy. So that's panda wraps. So there's the gluten range, which is what I've just been doing here. And then there's the gluten-free range, which is the predominantly panda versions.
So on the Ketoroma site, there are 2 bread collections, depending on whether you want the low carb gluten-based or the clean keto bamboo-based.
Oh, yeah, I thought about that, Helen. Right, okay. I didn't test the. I didn't sort of put a timer on for these. They look about done. Bear in mind these ovens are different to the ovens we use at the bakery, so they look a little bit less golden. You can sort of see it's formed a little air pocket on the side here, so that's why it's a little bit knobbly there. However, this is the one that I allowed to prove, or has been proving since this morning, and then this is the one that basically had no proving. So it had 15-20 minutes sat on the side. So they are quite crispy. You can sort of, again, you'll get a sort of like a crunchy crust to start with, but they will soften up. So again, these are the seeded versions, so they're slightly more rustic, should we say. But they do soften up. This again, we use baguette trays for these, so they actually hold their shape a little bit better when at the bakery. But you can make them. You can make them at home. It's still good. It's just not going to be as light and fluffy. Essentially same amount of dough, and this is much easier to handle and to actually create the shape than using dough that's just been made. So right, anyway, I think we've gone on enough about dough and bread. Somebody said, "Where's the butter?" Let's have a little. Yeah, the baguette trays, man. There you go. So you can sort of see it's a nice open loaf or open bread. Nice air pockets inside. And this one, I mean, you can see it, but it's definitely tighter. So there's not as many air pockets. It's not going to be as light, which means it's going to be more chewy. It's going to be more tough. Is that the right word? More tough, tougher. So the benefit of the proof of the pause is in the way it feels. The crust is better on the proved one. It's definitely got a better. It's got a crispier crust. Nice. Right. I'm going to go. So I'm trying to read the messages, but Hella's trying to do 20 things at the same time and actually sort of standing in front of the comments. Sal, thank you very much. Join us whenever you can. I'll be back next week with more bread chat. Anybody doing anything over the weekend?
Let me have a look.
What are you doing over the weekend? No, we haven't got time. Sorry, what?
Members class tomorrow. I'll have a look. Sunday 4 p.m. Sue is live, and I think I might be joining her. She's making shawarma.
Okay, nice.
Absolutely love that one.
Right.
So Chris is live in the members group tomorrow at 10, making all things cheesy crisp.
Right. Yes, it's it. Ella was laughing even at your joke, Emma. Last but not least, excellent. Get your mixer out. Honestly, it isn't difficult. Follow the process of the ingredients. If it doesn't work first time around, it doesn't mean you've done it wrong. Sometimes it's just check the yeast that you're using. If you're getting gluten from wherever you're getting your gluten from, try and find out what quality it is. There's some pretty poor quality stuff out there. That will impact the quality of your ingredients. Will impact on the quality of the bread itself. Don't be afraid of playing around with flavors. And if it rises too much, don't forget to score it. If it doesn't rise enough, don't forget you can still use it as breadcrumbs, or you'll find a different use for it. You wouldn't believe the amount of times that they've failed, and we go, right, okay, well, the loaf has only risen that much, and I've sliced it that way, and we've just put pizza toppings on it or something. It's a process. It's an experience, and the more you do it, the more you make your own bread, the more you'll love the fact that you can stick a loaf together, come down in the morning, pop it in the oven, you got fresh bread. Right. Good luck, whoever's going to edit that video, and gain any sense out of that. I presume that's Michael. Yeah. So our video editor has now got to go through an hour and a half of me nonsense. Right. I'm going to go and find something to eat.
It's not bread.
And it won't be bread. I will see some of you over the weekend. Have a nice time. And not nonsense. Did you render?
No?
Right. It's all right. I wasn't sure whether it's still here. I got bread, but I'm not having it.